everyone, my name is Holly. I'm a Vinyasa Yoga instructor, and today's class we're going to work into the shoulders and into the chest. I did have a request from one of my friends saying that my first two videos were all about the legs, so she said she wanted me to work a little bit into the chest, so I've made a little sequence for her and I hope that she likes it. So we're going to start in a comfortable cross-legged position, or sit on your feet, whatever's more comfortable for you. We'll just be here for a little while just to centre ourselves before we get started. So if you need to use a block, which I have here, but it's quite a thick one, so a thin one would be better, and just place it underneath your sitting bones to help you sit a bit more upright out of the waist. And we're going to place our hands on our knees, palms down or upright, whatever's more comfortable for you, making sure our shoulders are down away from the ears. Just closing down the eyes, relaxing the face, relaxing the jaw. And start to take our inhales through the nose. And taking a pause at the top of the breath. And exhaling through the nose. Then we start to count our inhales, so for a count of 4. And pausing at the top of our breath and exhaling for a count of 4. If you need to increase that inhale to 5 or 6, you just go ahead and do that. Just work with whatever's best for your breath. Just noticing the stillness of our body. And the only movement is our ribs expanding on an inhale and drawing back in towards the spine on an exhale. If you want to set yourself an intention for today's session, you can do that now. Or you can just be thankful that you've taken the time to spend on you and your yoga practice, which is what I like to do. And then fluttering the eyes open, and we'll get started. So we're going to work into the soles of the feet to begin with. So we're going to sit on our heels with our toes tucked, making sure our little toes are tucked under, just feeling a nice stretch down the soles of the feet. If this is too uncomfortable, you can just sit down onto the tops of the feet. But if you can stay in this position, then just go ahead and work into that stretch. So on an inhale, we're going to circle our hands up towards the ceiling, and we're going to take a side stretch. So on an exhale, we're going to bring our right fingertips down onto the mat, taking our left hand and bringing it over, just stretch into the left side waist. Because we're up a little bit higher, you might just be on your fingertips, but if you do have the space, you can come down onto the palms of the hands, just making sure you're not lifting up out of the hip. You want to really make sure both sitting bones are down on the heels. And then inhaling back up to centre, both arms up, and exhaling, taking our left fingertips down and stretching over to the left. Just feeling that nice stretch down the right side waist. And then inhaling and coming back to centre. So if you feel comfortable here, you can stay in this with your toes tucked, but if it's a bit too much, just come down onto the tops of the feet. And we're going to bring our shoulders, our elbows in line with our shoulders, in cactus arms. So we're going to work into stretching into the chest and warming up the spine. So on an inhale, we're going to draw our shoulder blades together. Elbows come back, chest comes forward. Exhaling, we're rounded through the back, bringing our forearms together. Inhaling, bringing those elbows back, chest comes forward. And exhaling, bringing those forearms together, round and through the back. And again, inhaling, chest comes forward. And exhaling. Just taking 2 more in your own breath. And after your final one, we're going to come into a tabletop position. So our wrists are directly under our shoulders, our knees are directly under our hips, and our spine is in a neutral position. And we're going to move into some cat-cows to warm up the spine. So on an inhale, we're going to drop the belly, lift the tailbone, chest comes forward, gaze is forward. On an exhale, we're rounding through the back, taking our gaze towards our legs. Inhaling, dropping that belly, chest comes forward. Exhaling, rounding through the back, drawing that belly in towards the spine. Inhaling. And exhaling. And taking 2 more in your own breath. And after your final exhale, just coming into a neutral spine. So now we're going to thread the needle. So we're going to take our right hand, bring it up towards the ceiling, feeling that nice stretch across the chest. And on an exhale, we're going to bring that right hand behind the left wrist, coming down onto the right shoulder and onto the right ear. So already you should feel a nice stretch into that right shoulder. If you want to increase it a little bit, just press down into that left hand. Maybe even taking that left hand onto the base of the spine. Maybe even wrapping it around the top of the right thigh and just twisting into that chest a little bit. Making sure our hips are over our knees. And if you do have a hold of that leg, you're going to bring that hand, that left hand back down onto the mat. With that right hand, we're going to bring it through towards the ceiling, stretch across the chest and back down into our tabletop position. And we'll take that on the other side. So with our left hand, bring it towards the ceiling, stretching across the chest. On the next exhale, drawing that hand behind the right wrist, coming down onto the right shoulder, left shoulder and the left ear. And this might be enough for you, but if you want to take it a little bit further, pressing down into that right hand, maybe taking that right hand onto the base of the spine, or even wrapping it around the left thigh and peeling that right shoulder back a little bit. And then releasing that thigh if you've got a hold of it, and bringing that right hand back down onto the mat. With that left hand, we're bringing it back up towards the ceiling, stretching across the chest and bringing that hand back down so we're in our tabletop position. So we're going to tuck our toes and we're going to lift our knees just about an inch off the mat. Just hovering it above the mat. Start to feel your core engage. Draw that belly in towards the spine. Smooth, steady breaths. Just hold it for a little bit longer. And now we're going to start to lift those hips high into our downward dog. So you might need to bring your hands forward a little bit and widen your stance. You can keep a bend in those knees if you need to. We can start to pedal out the feet, so bring one heel down to the mat, bending into the opposite leg, and then bring the other heel down to the mat, bending the opposite leg. And just working like that, stretching into the backs of the legs. There's a nice long straight line from our wrists all the way up to our tailbone. Our ears are in line with our biceps. Pressing down into the knuckles of the hands. Fingertips grounding down. Our shoulders are rolling away from us. And then coming into a little bit of stillness with our legs, we're going to start to walk our fingertips back towards our feet, coming into a forward fold when we get there. Keeping a bend in those knees if you need to. Bringing those hands wherever is comfortable, so you can just rest those fingertips on the floor. Bring those hands to the back of the ankles and draw that belly in towards the thighs. Just enjoying that nice stretch down the back of the body. We're going to move this into a bit of a twist. So we're going to take a bend into that right knee, straighten that left leg. Placing our right hand down onto the mat, and with our left hand we're taking it up towards the ceiling, taking it into a twist. Gaze is up to the hand if it's comfortable, top hand. Feeling that nice stretch down the back of the left leg. And then bringing that left hand back down to the mat. We're going to move to the opposite side, so take a deep bend into that left knee and straighten that right leg. Bringing our left hands down onto the mat, we're going to take our right hand and bring it up towards the ceiling. Gaze comes to the top hand if it's comfortable. And breath is steady. And bringing that top hands back down onto the mat, keeping a little bend in those knees, and slowly we're going to start to build ourselves up into a standing position, stacking vertebrae by vertebrae as we go, bringing our shoulders up in line with our ears and rolling them back and down until we're in a standing position. So we're grounding down through all four corners of the feet, palms of the hands facing forward, our tailbone is lengthening down towards the mat. Our shoulders are down away from the ears and the crown of the head is lifting up towards the ceiling. We're in our Tadasana pose. Taking a few breaths here. And we're going to move into a little bit more side body stretching. So I'm going to turn to face you, but you just stay in the position that you're in. So we're grounding down through our feet. We're going to circle our arms up towards the ceiling. We're going to come into a pistol grip, so our index fingers is pointing forward, or pointing up. Taking an inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to bend over to the right. Feeling that nice opening in the ribs on the left side. Making sure you're grounded down through both feet. You might notice a little bit more difficult to breathe in this position. And on our next inhale, we're coming back up to centre. And on an exhale, we're going over to the left. And inhaling back to centre, and we'll just do that one more time. Taking an inhale here, and on an exhale, bending over to the right. And inhaling back to centre. Exhaling over to the left. Really ground down through both feet. And inhaling back to centre. And bringing those hands in prayer position down through heart centre. So we're going to move through a couple of sun salutations, what I like to do at the end of a warm-up. So on an inhale, we're going to circle our arms up towards the ceiling, our palms meet overhead. On an exhale, we're bringing those hands out wide and we're swan diving down over the body. Our fingertips can stay where they are, our palms come onto the shins, and on an inhale, we're coming into a flat back. On an exhale, we're bringing our hands down onto the mat and we're stepping back with our right leg and then stepping back with our left into a plank position. So we're pushing back to those heels. Our wrists are directly under our shoulders and our core is engaged. Taking an inhale here. And on an exhale, we're going to lower ourselves down. So bring your knees down if you need to, bending at the elbows, keeping them close to the body, and we're lowering all the way down to the mat. Keeping our hands where they are. On an inhale, we're going to lift into a Cobra, real gentle one for the first one. Just go as far as you need to, keeping those elbows bent. On an exhale, lowering back down and tapping those toes. We're bringing those hips back towards the heels. We're lifting those knees and we're coming into our downward dog. Taking 2 breaths here. And on our next inhale, our gaze is coming up towards the hands, and we're stepping up with the right leg, then the left leg into our forward fold, and then inhaling into our flat back, exhaling back into our forward fold, circling those arms up towards the ceiling, palms meet overhead, and we'll go straight into our second set. So exhaling, diving those hands up wide, down over the body, inhaling into our flat back. Exhaling, we're coming into plank, stepping back with the left leg first. Core is engaged. As we exhale, we're lowering down to the mat, using your knees if you need to. We're inhaling into our Cobra, keep those elbows in towards the body. Coming up a little bit higher if you can. Exhaling, lowering down. Tucking those toes under, bringing those hips back towards the heels. Lifting those knees off the mat and into our downward dog. Taking 2 breaths here. On our next inhale, taking that left leg and stepping it up to the hands, following with the right leg. Inhaling into our flat back. Exhaling, lowering down over the body. Inhaling, bring those arms up towards the ceiling, and exhaling, drawing those hands down through heart center. On an inhale, we're bringing our hands up towards the ceiling, and on an exhale, bringing those arms out wide and diving down over the body. We're inhaling into our flat back and exhaling. So this time, as we step back into our plank, you can move into a Chaturanga, or you can lower all the way down if you want to. So Chaturanga, we're bending at the elbows and we're coming down halfway. We're coming onto the tops of the feet, and we're inhaling into upward dog. So our knees are off the floor, our hips are off the floor. We're pressing down into the palms of those hands and the tops of those feet. On our next exhale, we're tucking those toes, and we're lifting our hips high into our downward dog. On our next inhale, we're going to shoot that right leg up towards the ceiling. And on an exhale, drawing that knee in towards the chest. Weight comes over the wrist. We're stepping that right foot in between the hands. We're going to pivot that back heel in, toes come out a little bit. So we're moving into warrior one. So you might be able to be heel to heel, or you might need to widen your stance a little bit so that your hips can face forward. Inhale, we're bringing those arms up towards the ceiling. So we want our hip bones facing the front of the mat, gaze is forward. So if you can be aligned heel to heel, that's great. If you need to go a little bit wider, that's fine. We're lifting up out of the waist. There's a deep bend in that front knee. Our hands are shoulder distance apart. Now we're going to bring our arms down behind our back. We're going to interlace our fingers, and we're going to bring our right shoulder down inside our right knee. So we're moving into humble warrior. So inhaling here, just drawing those knuckles back. Exhaling, coming down into the inside of the right leg. So there's a deep bend in that knee. We're bringing our knuckles up towards the ceiling, keeping our neck soft, so gaze is wherever is comfortable, maybe towards the back heel. Breathe in here. It's a real strong one for that front leg, grounding down through both feet. Really working into those shoulders. Now we're going to bring our left hand down to the mat. We're going to pivot on that back foot, so we're coming into tucking those toes under, and we're bringing our right hand up towards the ceiling as we've moved into a twist. Taking that gaze up to the top hand. And bringing that right hand down to the mat. We're stepping back into a plank position, and we're going to move through a vinyasa. So exhaling on a chaturanga, or lowering down all the way onto the mat. Inhaling into our upward dog or cobra. Exhaling, tucking those toes into our downward dog. So we'll take that on the left side. So inhaling our left leg up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, drawing that knee in towards the chest. Weight comes over the wrist, and we're stepping that foot through. We're going to pivot that back foot so the heel comes in and the toes comes out. So you can be aligned, like I said, heel to heel, or widen it if you need to. Inhale, and we'll bring those arms up towards the ceiling into our warrior one. So there's a deep bend in that front knee. Our hip bones are facing forward. Arms are shoulder distance apart. We're lifting up out of the waist. Taking a few breaths here. And we'll move into our humble warrior. So we're going to bring our hands and interlace behind our back. Interlace in the opposite way, so whichever little thing comes on top is replaced by the other one. We're drawing those knuckles down. We're inhaling here. And as we exhale, we're bringing that left shoulder to the inside of the left leg into our humble warrior. Our knuckles are coming up towards the ceiling. Keeping our neck nice and loose. Really ground down through both feet. It's a real strong one in that left leg. Working into those shoulders. Now we're going to bring our right hands down onto the mat. We're going to pivot onto the right foot so the back toes are tucked, and we're moving it into a twist. So our left hand comes up towards the ceiling, gaze goes up with it if it's comfortable. Feeling that nice stretch across the chest. And then bringing that left hand down onto the mat. We're going to step that left foot back and move through our vinyasa, whichever one works for you. Inhale into up dog or cobra. Exhaling, pushing those hips high into our downward dog. Just taking a few breaths here in our downward dog. And then we're going to bring our elbows and forearms down onto the mat, clasping the fingertips and walking our feet in, hips are high, into our dolphin pose. So our weight is over the shoulders, making sure we're not holding any tension in the neck. And we'll take a few leg kicks, so raising that right foot up towards the ceiling, pointing the toes, and bringing that foot back down to the mat, and raising that left leg up towards the ceiling, and bringing that foot down towards the mat, and again with the right foot towards the ceiling. Lowering that leg back down, and then the left leg up towards the ceiling, pointing those toes and bringing that foot down onto the mat. We're bending into those knees. We're going to bring those big toes together, laying our chest over the thighs into a child's pose. Forehead comes down onto the mat if it's comfortable. Bringing our hands back towards the heels, rounding through the shoulders. Hips are heavy. Just breathing into the back. And then we're going to come back into the tabletop position. We're going to tuck those toes and we're going to come into our plank position. We're going to move into a side plank, so if you need to move your right hand under that shoulder a little bit for stability, you can do that. And then we're going to roll onto the outer edge of the right foot. You can stack those feet if you want to. You can bring that left foot in front of that right foot, or you can bring that sole of the right foot down to support you. But we're moving into our plank position. Bringing that left hand, up towards the ceiling, taking that gaze up with it if it's comfortable. Really lifting up out of the waist, just feeling those obliques working to keep you in position. Just a few more breaths here. And then we're going to lower that left hand back down to the mat, coming into a downward dog. Taking our gaze in between the hands and stepping or hopping up to the top of the mat into a forward fold. Then circling those arms up towards the ceiling, palms meet overhead, and bringing those hands down through heart center. So we're going to move into a balancing posture, which is eagle pose. So I'm going to turn to face you, but you can stay standing at the top of the mat. So we're going to bring our arms down in front of us at shoulder height. We're going to cross that right elbow over the left elbow. We're going to bring those forearms together, so your backs of the hands might be touching, or you can bring those palms of the hands together if you've got the space. So already you should feel a nice stretch into the shoulder blades. We're going to ground down through that left foot. We're going to start to bend that right leg. We're going to start to take the weight into the left foot, bending at the knee. We're going to raise that right knee over the left knee. So you might be here, or you can double wrap, and you can wrap that foot around that leg. Just coming down, hips come down. We're going to lower those shoulder blades. We're going to lift those elbows. Gazing at something that isn't going to move. We're in our eagle pose. This is a really nice one for the top of the back. A couple more breaths here. Really ground down through that left foot. And then we're going to start to untangle the arms and untangle the legs. Give yourself a little shake. And we'll come to the top of the mat. Circle those arms up towards the ceiling. Swan diving down over the body. We're going to step back into our plank position. And we're going to move into our side plank on the left side. So you can bring that left hand underneath the left shoulder, coming onto the outside of the left foot. Remember that foot position wherever is comfortable for you, and bring that right hand up towards the ceiling. So we're really grounding down through that left foot and that left hand, and that right hand is lifting up towards the ceiling. Bring that gaze up towards the hand if it's comfortable. Lifting up out of the waist. Hips are high. And then bringing that right hand down, coming into that downward dog. And then bending the knees, gaze comes up to the hands, and we can hop or step to the top of the mat. Circling those arms out wide, and coming back into the standing position. Arms, hands down through heart center. And we'll do eagle pose on the opposite side, so I'll turn to face you again. So now we're gonna ground down through that right foot, bringing our arms straight out in front of you at shoulder height. We're bending that left arm over the right arm, crossing at the elbow. We're bringing those forearms together, backs of the hands can come in contact, or our palms come together. We're going to start to lift that left knee. We're going to start to bend into that right knee. Our left knee comes over the right knee. So we can stay here with just one leg crossed, or we can double wrap and bring that foot around. We're sinking down into the hips. We're lifting those elbows. You might wobble a little bit. That's fine. If you do come out of the pose, just come straight back into it. Lift those elbows. Concentrate on something that isn't going to wobble. You might feel really shaky on one ankle. That's fine. Your balance might be a little bit off today. That's okay. Woo! I'm shaking. Okay. Oh, and then we'll come out of that pose. Release the arms, release the legs, have a little shake. Coming up to the top of the mat. We're going to circle those arms out wide. We're going to bend down over the body. We're going to interlace our fingers behind our back. And we're going to lift our knuckles up towards the ceiling, just stretching into the chest again. Really working into those shoulders. Making sure there's no tension in the neck. And then bringing those knuckles down onto the base of the spine. Bringing those hands down to the mat. And slowly, slowly start to build yourself vertebrae by vertebrae until you're in a standing position. So now we're going to bring our feet as wide, mat distance, width distance apart. We're going to bring our toes out and our heels in. I'm going to turn to face you. So we're going to bring our hands together at heart center, And we're going to move into our Yogi Squat, Malasana pose. So we're going to bend at the knees. And we're going to move down into a squat. So you might be able to come here, and that's fine. We're just working into the legs, working into the hips. If you can bring that tailbone lower, we're going to start to lower ourselves down. So if you need a block to sit on, to make it a little bit more comfortable, that's fine. If you want to get a thin block and put it under your heels, if your heels are lifted off the mat, you can do that. We want to press our elbows into our knees, knees into our elbows, really working into those inner thighs. We want to feel broad across the collarbones. We want to feel like the crown of the head is lifting up towards the ceiling, and our tailbone is lengthening down towards the mat. Taking a few steady breaths here, just working into those hips. And then keeping our legs where they are, we can start to bring our right hand down to the floor and taking our left hand up towards the ceiling, taking our gaze up with it, just feeling that nice stretch across the chest. If you have a bind in your practice, you can bring that right hand behind that right leg and then bring that left hand, catching a hold and just stretching into the chest a little bit deeper. But wherever you are is fine. And then coming back to center, palms together. We'll go on the other side, so bringing our left hand down. Our right hand comes up towards the ceiling, gaze goes with it. If you want to move into that bind, we're going to bring that left hand behind the thigh, catching a hold with the right hand, just stretching into the chest. And then coming back to center. So we're going to move into our crow pose. So coming up onto our toes, we're going to bring our hands out in front of us at shoulder distance apart. We're going to bring our knees onto the outside of our arms. So if they can come up towards your armpits, that's even better. But I kind of like to hook them onto the outside of my arms a little bit lower. We're going to take a bend in our elbows and we're going to start to lift our hips up high. So we're starting in this position. Really bring those knees in towards the outside of the arms. We're going to start to roll the weight forward onto the wrists. And we can lift one foot off the mat, lowering it back down, maybe lifting the other foot, lowering it back down. If you can come into full crow, go into full crow. Keeping our gaze is forward. Remember, you're not too far from the mat, so if you fall, that's fine. If you can bring both feet off the mat, really engage in that core to hold you into position. If you come out of it, just rock back into it. And lowering back down. So we're going to bring our knees down onto the mat, making sure our hips are over our knees. We're going to move into puppy pose. So we're going to start to walk those hands forward, start to bring our chest down towards the mat. We can bring our chin onto the mat or our forehead, whatever is comfortable for you, melting those armpits down onto the mat, just feeling that nice stretch across the chest and into the armpits. Taking some steady breaths here. And then putting some weight into the palms of our hands. We're going to start to sweep our chest forward into Sphinx pose. So we're going to bring our hips down onto the mat, tops of the feet onto the mat. We want to feel like we're pulling our palms towards us, pulling that chest through, pulling that nice stretch into the back. Releasing back down, bringing those palms one on top of the other, resting the forehead on them and just shaking out the hips a little, just loosening everything up. And then bringing our palms down onto the mat, pushing our hips high, and bringing our sitting bones down onto the mat. So we can bring our legs out long in front of us. Our palms are down onto the mat, fingertips facing forwards or behind, whatever's more comfortable for you, underneath the shoulders. We're going to start to lift our hips up off the mat into an upward facing plank. So if you want to move into a tabletop position, you can. So our upward facing plank, on an inhale, we're lifting those hips, bringing those toes down onto the mat. You can drop the head if it's comfortable for you. If you want to move into tabletop, we're going to bring our soles of the feet down onto the mat, lifting those hips. Same thing with the neck. If it's comfortable for you, drop the head back or just keep the head in a neutral position, gaze is up. Lifting those hips a little bit higher. And then lowering those hips back down onto the mat. Straightening those legs out in front of you. We're going to bring our right knee in towards the chest. We're going to bring our foot to the outside of our left leg. We're going to wrap our left arm around the right thigh. We're going to swoop that right hand up and over, bringing those fingertips down to the mat behind you, taking our gaze with it over the right shoulder, drawing that knee in towards the chest, feeling that nice twist in the spine. Maybe you've got a little bit of a stretch in the outer right thigh. Inhaling, coming back to center. We're going to bring the sole of that right foot in towards the left thigh. We're going to bring those arms up overhead, lifting up out of the waist, and we're going to take a fold over the left leg. Hands come wherever is comfortable. So maybe onto the backs of the heels, maybe peace fingers around the toe, maybe onto the outside of the calf. Just melting down, just feeling that nice stretch on the back of the legs. Keep a bend in the leg if your hamstrings are really tight. And then inhaling back to center, and we'll do that on the opposite side. So we bring that right leg out straight in front of us, drawing that left knee in towards the chest, bringing that left foot to the outside of the right leg, hugging that right arm around the left knee and swooping that left arm up and over, bringing those fingertips down behind you, gaze is over the left shoulder. Feeling that nice twist in the upper back, maybe a little bit of stretch to the outside of the left thigh. And then inhaling back to center. We're going to bring that sole of the left foot to the inside of the right thigh. We're lifting up out of the waist. On an inhale, bringing our arms up overhead, and we're folding down over that right leg. Keeping a bend in the knee if you need to. Taking those hands wherever is comfortable and just melting down over the leg. Just feeling that nice stretch down the back of the body. And then inhaling back to center. We're going to come onto our backs and we're going to lift our legs up towards the ceiling. So if you're at home and you're near a wall, you can bring your sitting bones up towards the edge of the wall, legs up the wall, and just relax there. You can take a block and you can place it under the base of your spine. So you're going to need to play around with it and see where it's comfortable. And when you get it in the right spot, you're going to bring those legs up towards the ceiling. Bring those palms down beside you and just enjoy that feeling, those legs being up towards the ceiling. If you want to go into shoulder stand, we're going to bring those knees in towards the chest. And we're going to lift those hips up and off the mat. And we're going to catch a hold of the lower back with the palms of our hands. So we're starting like this. And we're going to start to lift those legs up towards the ceiling. And we're going to walk our hands up the spine very slowly. And we're bringing those hips over the shoulders. We're in one long straight line. Our chest is in towards our chin. Our toes are pointing up towards the ceiling. And we're in one long straight line. I'm going to stay here for 4 more breaths. After your next breath, we're going to slowly start to bring those hips down, keeping a hold with your hands. Bring those knees down towards the face. If you know how to go into ear pressure pose, you can bring those knees down towards the mat behind you, but only do it if it's comfortable for your head. Maybe bringing those shins down onto the mat. Or just going to slowly start to roll the spine down onto the mat. Bringing those knees in towards the chest. We're rocking a little bit from side to side. And then bringing those arms out wide at shoulder height, or cactus arms if you don't have the room. Taking an inhale here, and on an exhale, we're just gonna drop those knees over to the left. Our gaze comes over to the right. We're keeping both shoulder blades down on the mat. Use that core to bring us back to center. And then on our next exhale, we're going to drop our knees over to the right, taking our gaze over to the left, keeping both shoulder blades down on the mat. Enjoying that nice twist in the spine. Nice stretch across the chest. And then using that core to bring those knees back to center, wrapping those arms around the shins, bringing that nose in towards the knees and giving yourself a tight little squeeze. And then on our next exhale, we're lowering everything down. We're going to bring our feet to each corner of the mat, rolling our toes away from us, bringing our arms out long beside us, away from the body, palms facing up. Our shoulders are down away from the ears. Closing down the eyes. Slowing down the breath. Just having a quick scan of the body, noticing what parts are connected with the mat. Our heels, our calves, backs of the thighs, glutes, middle back, upper back, shoulder blades, backs of the arms, elbows, forearms, knuckles of the hands, and the back of the head. And just sinking down into the mat. you want a longer Shavasana, you can go ahead and hit pause here. Then we can start to bring our awareness back to the body. So wiggling the fingers and wiggling the toes. If our legs are apart, bring them together. Pointing through the toes, bring our arms up overhead and stretching through the front of the body. And gently we're going to bring one knee in towards the chest and then the other, and roll into whatever side is comfortable for you, keeping the eyes closed. And then using our hands, we're going to bring ourselves up into a seated position. On our next inhale, we're going to circle our arms up towards the ceiling, palms meet overhead, and draw them down through our center. Taking an inhale here. And on our next exhale, we're going to bow our forehead to our fingertips. Thank you for joining me today. Namaste.